Captain Vikram Batra, a name that has inspired generations, a brave soul, a martyr and a soldier who became synonymous with India's victory in the 1999 Kargil conflict. It's been decades, but his cheerful "Ye Dil Mange More" resonates through the hearts of millions of Indians, reminding us of the glory of India's men in olive greens. Today, we're joined by Mr. Vishal Batra, the twin brother of late Captain Vikram Batra. Mr. Batra, thank you very much for joining us on Republic TV. It's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me here. Good afternoon to one and all.
Right, sir. Just to get started, when something like Pahalgam happens and the entire country wants a revenge, it wants an action against the country that has been fueling terrorism. As a family, as someone who's made the ultimate sacrifice, what are the thoughts that run through your mind, sir, when the entire nation wants war?
See, there are two ways to look at it. One, if I see it as a personal sibling, you just flash back into the memories when India was fighting the Kargil against Pakistan, and you were seeing the coffins of the people coming around, right? And Pahalgam was something different, primarily, which was definitely put in against the religion-based hunting of the people, which I personally believe was not a right gesture by the enemy. And the only thing which really crosses the mind is that our army anyhow has been protecting the borders for such a long time, and we do see the proxy war, which is continuing for a very, very long time. Why not, once and for all, it could be really cut down, wherein this kind of a heinous act or a crime does not get repeated, is the thought which comes to your mind. Two, also, if you think it from, as you mentioned that if the nation wants a war, my personal view is it's very easy to say that, you want a war, but end of the day, my personal belief, and I'm very honest in admitting that it's not easy. For a family who's a soldier's family, you have to think it from that lens also, that is it that the war situation would lead something positive as an outcome or not. So primarily, if you have to really get into that kind of a situation, I personally believe the present government, which is thinking more strategically, diplomatically, and of course also hitting them by giving them a lesson is the right way to look at it. And that's what the thought, honestly, comes to my mind also, rather than just waging out a war and just thinking and making a slogan, let's go and get into a war with a full throttle. I personally believe that that's not a right strategy, is what my view is.
So what is the right stance? I mean, for a soldier's family, what is the right way probably to ensure that we avenge the attack that has taken place, and still that fear of not losing the loved one?
My personal view is that you have to hit them in such a fashion wherein you also take the venom out of the snake, and you also kill the snake, right? So if you look at the way the present government had led it, my personal belief is that whether it was to do with the Indus Water Treaty Abeyance, right, which was more of a diplomatic state, right, which was the right way to look at it to begin with. Two, I think it is also, as I mentioned, that primarily the proxy war, which has been on and continuing for, I think, a decade, more than 20 years or 30 years, it is also primarily the perpetrators who got into your borders, which actually, gets into a conflict with the Indian army. Hitting their targets and destroying them was a right strategy. That's the right way to look at it. Third, I think it's also primarily to dismantle the opponent, right, which is primarily the enemy or the army of the other country, in such a fashion that they get to the knees of and they are taught a lesson by hitting their strategic sites, where you disassemble them completely in terms of, even in case they wish to wage out a war, it will not be easy for them to really hunt it down in that fashion, is the way I look at it.
Right, sir. So you are his twin. 14 minutes younger, or 14?
Yes, I'm his younger identical by 14 minutes.
Right, sir. Could you tell us, did you ever think of joining the armed forces? Did he always want to join the armed forces?
So let me be honest, we in fact both dreamt joining forces together, and I'm 3 times not recommended by the service selection board, because I thought that army never wanted a second Batra, one was enough. And the two, incidentally, me and Vikram attended our first SSB together. Right, it was way back in 1996 when we went both together to SSB Allahabad, and Vikram made it in his attempt at 18 Allahabad and 19 Allahabad, sorry, and I was not recommended by the 18 Allahabad Center. Then, of course, I did my second attempt in Bangalore and third attempt in Bhopal. But unfortunately, I believe the destiny had some other role to play, and that's the reason I ended up doing, and picking up a corporate job in the private sector.
Okay. And then after, so once that he joined the army, how were the days like? How frequently would he come home? Could you take us through some of the childhood memories that when you look back that you remember the most, sir?
Vikram was from the Indian Military Academy, Dehradun. Vikram graduated in December 1997. And of course, during those times, it used to be a 6-month term that still continues. Vikram used to come on a chutti for 21 days, post one term, second term, and of course, final term. Of course, he had to graduate as a commissioned officer. Mostly, we used to really chat around it, how I am missing the life, and he used to tell me how physically well they are trained and how mentally well they are made tough so as to face the obstacles. Because once they graduate as a commissioned officer, of course, he got posted out in a very hotbed place called as Sopore, which was a part of district Baramulla, right? So he used to share a lot of stories. Once he was posted in Sopore as a second lieutenant. And he used to be in the thickest of the counter-insurgency. And during those days, I'm sure you would remember that 96, 2000, early 2000, Baramulla, Sopore was a very, very hotbed of terrorism. Right? He used to share a lot of stories around it, what the army is doing there and how they used to undertake the operations. That used to be a normal life and normal sharing by Vikram once he was a commissioned officer. Of course, he never used to give the complete details because of security reasons. But just to give me a glimpse of life, because I also had dreamt of joining the forces, which I couldn't don the olive green. But yes, I got to. I was lucky enough to hear a lot of stories directly from his mouth.
Okay. Did he ever think that he would be called in for the Kargil operation? A lot has already been depicted through films. A lot has already been spoken about. But I want to know through you: did he expect that he would be deployed for the Kargil operation?
No, in fact, it was not, because I met Vikram for the last time when he had just finished his commandos in March 99. It was 9th of March 99. That was my last meeting with Vikram. And he was supposed to go back to his unit, which is posted in Sopore, as I mentioned. And they were already, advancing to a place called Shahjahanpur in UP. And he had written to me in one of the letters that the advance party is already gone and they would be moving to Shahjahanpur. But incidentally, the Kargil happened and the unit was asked to move to Kargil rather than moving to Shahjahanpur. That's the way it had happened. And of course, he never went to Shahjahanpur. Incidentally, from Sopore only, he moved to Kargil for the Operation Vijay, which took place in 99.
So when you and your family got to know that our son is going to fight for the Kargil War, what were the discussions like? What happened? How did it go through? What did you talk about? Could you tell us about that?
Incidentally, we never had the mobile phones. I'm sorry, I never had the luxury of having a mobile phone. We used to get only the letters from him. But yes, he did get a chance to call up mom and dad when he was fighting the Operation Vijay in Dras. The army is doing a fantastic job. He never used to write anything, primarily on the account of the security reasons. I incidentally have 4 letters written to me by him from the battlefield. One was exactly before he undertook the first mission for Point 5140. Then he wrote a second letter to me after the success when he, gave the thumping line "Ye Dil Mange More," which of course fought the fancy of the India. And third letter was exactly 2 days before he went for the second operation, which was Point 4875, which now of course is called as the Batra Top. And the last was again, I think, just 2 days before he attained martyrdom. He was only writing in those letters that the army is doing a fantastic job, and they are behind the Pakistanis in a big fashion. And definitely all the leads had got cancelled. The army was very, very clear. They had to push the enemy back to their territory, and India is going to win the war. He had written that he was already recommended for a Mahavir Chakra after his first success in Point 510, is all what he used to write. But yes, I remember when he spoke to mom and dad, which was, I believe, on 26th of June, because 20th June is when he led the attack on Point 5140. He got a chance to call up mom and dad through a satellite phone. And he did say that, I have captured the peak. Right? And the mom and dad were very happy. And we were also very confident because Vikram was a very, 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 very gutsy guy. Vikram never feared anything. Vikram was very active in sports. Vikram was very, very active in any other extracurricular activities during the school days or college days. And since it was a dream of always to don the uniform, which is olive green, we never believed that he's not going to come back. I'll be very, very honest with you. Right? Even though in some of his letters he had written to me that the life is at a total risk because they were facing a hell lot of the army bullets, the artillery shells, and whatnot. And since the enemy was at a very strategic location, they had to move up. He did mention that the life is at risk. But in any of his letters, I never felt that he's not going to come back. In fact, just to share with you, in one of the letters he had written, post his first success, that he was interviewed by the media and he would like to see all the clippings when he's back. Right? He was so confident that he's going to come back. So we also never thought that he's going to come back. Though, war, that's the reason I said, war is very easy to say that go and get into a war. But primarily the thoughts which cripple the minds of the families of the soldiers, it's very difficult to really absorb that, it can lead to that situation where you would lose your loved one. Nobody wants to lose a loved one, right? And primarily when you have those, diplomatic solutions or the strategic solutions which can lead to normalizing the situation more strategically, I always believe that that's the right way. Right? And if I compare it even for a minute, whether I don't think I should be talking, but I generally think as a human being, if you look at Russia and Ukraine, 3 years, what is happening? Right? So even if you get into a war, you don't even know what the outcome would be. Right? I know that Indian army is fantastic. It's one of the best armies in the world. We know that we could have given it back once and for all. वो thought आता है आपके दिमाग में. But then, I personally believe the way India is growing today, right? The way India is in the cusp of becoming the top 3 economies in the world today, right? We almost on the verge of hitting a 5 trillion economy. Why do you want to get into a situation where you are behind by 10 years? Because when you get into a war, it is just not about being diplomatic, being political, being social. It has a lot of implications which could be social, political, and economical. And I think India is a country which has always been a peace-loving, right? And that's the reason I'm very, very honest. And it's not a diplomatic view I'm giving. It's not a political view I'm giving. I personally believe that what Indian Army has done, what the Indian government, present government has done in terms of giving it back to the enemy was the right way to look at it. And I'm sure that when the right push comes to shove, I don't think we're going to spare anyone. That's what my belief is. That's my belief. That's a belief I also have in heart to heart.
Right. But I want to take you back to that moment actually. You rightly said that when he captured 0.5140, that was a victory. And then where it actually went back was 4875. Do you ever think, looking back as his brother, that he probably, do you wish he had not gone back? Do you wish the unit had, was just, do you just wish that it had never happened?
Honestly, yes, I do.
Because there was a victory already. There was a victory already.
Yes, I do. But I personally believe, it's also the moment of truth which was known only to Vikram. Of course, I lost my dearest friend, my dearest brother, my dearest buddy, and we were very, very thick. Right? You can think of identical twins, right? We spent all our childhood, all our college life together. We used to roam around together. As I mentioned, we attempted our first SB together. When he made it, I couldn't make it. He kept on pushing me hard. Right? Okay, Vishal, just keep on pushing yourself. I'm sure you will definitely get it one day. Right? So when you look at it from that, angle primarily, you always feel, I wish he was there. And more so that, whatever stories you're asking me, I wish he was there to share the stories by himself. But in reality, the second mission, what he undertook, which was, of course, 0.4875, what was the movement of the truth at that point of time, and what made Vikram take a decision that he would like to go up for a second mission?
Yes, and expose so bravely to the enemy. Yeah.
True, right? And expose it so easily. And then also, above all, what I personally believe, and just to share with you, I happened to climb 0.4875 in 2019. It was exactly 7th of July, when we lost Vikram. 2019, exactly after 20 years, we did an expedition. And this expedition, of course, happened along with the 13th Jammu and Kashmir Rifle, when retired Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi was the corps commander, right? We went together. And believe you me, when I was there on the peak, standing at the top of 4875, 17,100 feet, there was very less oxygen. What really made me think that how these people would have climbed. So it was very easy for me to tell, he should not have climbed. But what would have transpired at that moment of time? What would have gone through his mind? Because he was, of course, commanding a platoon. Right? And being a platoon commander, you leading a section of 10 people or 20 people, leading a company of 25 people. Right? So he was the best decision maker at that point of time, I believe. You always wish. And I generally, whenever you watch 26th of January parade every year, and you have the three live Paramveer Chakra, right? Sanjay ji, Yogendra Yadav ji, and Bana Singh ji, you see them saluting and taking that salute at the Rajpath. मुझे हमेशा लगता है कि काश विक्रम वापस आया होता. We would have seen Vikram, taking that salute on 26th January every year. We had dreamt so much together that Vikram will become a brigade commander or a div commander. We would do this, we would do that, because unfortunately I couldn't join. I was not recommended. But then, in hindsight, you also believe that we lost so many young people and everybody has to go one day. So even after 27 years, we're talking about Vikram. I think he attained that martyrdom, which rarely one gets. And it doesn't mean that I'm not emotional. I'm very emotional guy. I was very attached to him, and that's the reason I said I wish what you're asking me was shared by him. But even once I'm gone, he would be remembered for the rest of his life.
Yeah. But
right.
Yeah, I want to know, how was that moment, sir, when you actually got the call, the message that this has happened? What was it like at home? When did you receive it? What was it like? Could you describe that entire?
That was a very, very sad moment. At least, that one call, I think has stayed with me, until today. And, and the way I miss him, I personally believe that, the loss of losing Vikram will go only when I am in the grave. And that day, it was 8th of July, when unfortunately I picked up the call. I still don't know who was the person who called me up. And I was working for Tata Finance in Delhi. And the phone bell rang. It was around 2:40 or 2:45 in the afternoon, 8th of July. And he said, "Can we speak to Vishal?" और मेरे पास मोबाइल नहीं होता था. And I wondered that who's calling me on a landline. I said, "Yes, this is Vishal here." He said, "We're calling from Palampur." The moment he said, "We're calling from Palampur," I got it that Vikram is not there. I said, "बोलिए." He said, "आपके भाई साहब को गोली लगी है." तो मुझे लगा यार, Vikram is not a guy who'll go with one bullet. And just 2 days back, we had seen him in the entire media. He was giving a complete briefing and download about the capture of 5140 and how he's planning to go for a second mission. And I said, "How is he?" He said, "He's no more." And you reach Palampur and he disconnected the phone. So that is something which has stayed with me until now. Though it's been almost 27 years now, that thing has never gone out of my mind. And it was a very, very tragic, because my both sisters, we are 4 siblings. I'm the youngest one. My both sisters were pregnant. My one sister was an 8th-month pregnancy, and my second sister was a 5th month of pregnancy. Right? So we had a very, very tough time, managing everything, right from, because my sister, one of my sisters was in the 8th month of pregnancy. She was also in Delhi. And we had to take her all the way from Delhi to Palampur. And during those days, it used to take 14 hours to reach from Delhi to Palampur. Right? So that moment was very, very tough. Right? And of course, we were also worried for mom and dad, because Palampur mein koi tha nahi aur mom dad ke saath. My both sisters were married. My one sister was in Mandi, second sister in Delhi. I was in Delhi. So it was a very, very tough moment, to be very honest. And that moment, I don't think will ever go. And unfortunately, I say, that Vikram was also the first cremation of my life. Right? I had never seen, I never liked using the word dead body. But when Vikram came in the coffin, I'd never seen a dead body before that in my life ever. Right? So it was a very, very tough moment for me to lit the pyre of my own brother, who had become a household name, who had definitely caught the fancy of all the young Indians, that a young captain at the age of 24 is really fighting such a war at such a 17,000, 18,000 feet and pushing the enemy behind. So those things have stayed with me, which definitely give you a lot of grief. And I personally believe, I think you have to live with it. It's not that, you overcome these things. It's only that you tend to learn. You learn to live with it. The grief never goes away. The sadness never goes away. And that's the reason I said, I wish he was there to explain everything by his own self. I would have loved to hear the stories of his valor by his own mouth. And I remember my own experience when I went up to 0.4875 on 7th of July 2019, and we had the entire unit of 13 Jack, and everybody was explaining it to me. Vishal, the enemy came from this side, Vikram was this side, Vikram jumped the cliff, right? Vikram could have avoided that because there was no place. It was a very narrow ledge. So you tend to hear those stories as to what all would have happened. The reason is today, whatever I know, is also known to me only out of the stories which I've heard from the same valiant soldiers who fought along with him, who fought alongside him, right? So that's what, which keeps on hitting your mind a lot of times.
But do you ever wonder why your father asked you to light the pyre? Because you specifically mentioned that. Why did that? I mean, what was the thought behind it? What was going through his mind at that time when he asked you to do that?
See, I personally believe it's a tradition that if you have two sons and the second son is there, the father will never lit the fire. I think it's a tradition, is what my understanding is, and I never got into those details. Of course, I was not in I was in a very bad shape to do it, because since I was, and when we took the Vikram out of the coffin, I actually felt that I've lost one of my limbs. I've lost a very, very important part of my life. It has got amputated, right? And 24 is no age. I was also just settling in my career, right? And then, as I mentioned, that we had dreamt together. I used to always tease him जब भी वो कभी छुट्टी पे आता था, when he was a part of the CI operations. Right? मैं उसको हमेशा छेड़ता था यार कि मुझे तेरे साथ CI ops देखना है कि क्या होता है, because unfortunately I couldn't don the uniform. And he always used to tell me, don't worry, a time will come and I'll make you fire a bullet, I'll make you fire a gun, and everything vanished in a bit.
Yeah. You spoke about dreams. What were your dreams together?
Our dream was primarily one that we both were very active sports persons. We always dreamt of joining the forces. We never thought of a second profession in my life ever. It's incidental that I had to choose a career, so I became a banker. And but otherwise, our dream was always joining the uniform, because we were so much in awe of the olive green. I'm very honest. So we never thought of a second profession, either in engineering side or a medical side. And the reason was that one, we thought that since we were studying in a school which was in the center of which was in one of the cantonments, which was a brigade during those days. Of course, it's a div headquarter now. We were always surrounded by the people in the olive green, and when we looked at the quality of the life of these people, right? The way we always thought that army was not a profession. Army was a way of life. We got really, really colored with that approach, and that's the reason our dream of donning the uniform was very, very high on our heads, right? And incidentally, we also had a friend circle wherein everybody in I think everybody, a second guy or a third guy, was son of a colonel or son of a brigadier.
Not much is spoken about his personal life. Are there any facets which are not known, not talked about, which you would like to talk to us about?
I believe, see, there are a lot of stories. At times it happens that people talk you come through a lot of memories around. Not many people know that Vikram was also a national level in a youth parliament competition, right? When he was in class 12, and he did the role of the Prime Minister of India in the youth parliament, right? That's one facet, I think, which is not known to the public domain. Not many people would know. I think Vikram was a great skater, roller skater. And while Vikram also represented his school in nationals, I also represented my school in All India Nationals in table tennis. But Vikram picked up squash as his game once he became a commissioned officer. And he was very good with the squash racket. Very, very good. Right? And I remember his takiya kalam was that whenever he used to travel, he used to have a rucksack, the green and the black color combination. And on the side net of the rucksack, it always used to be a squash racket. Right, which not many people would know. He left table tennis and he picked up squash as a game. Third, he was very fond of becoming perfect in everything. Right, and I tend to I got to hear a lot from his fellow soldiers who were a part of his company that Vikram was very daring to go, and he was always willing to undertake any mission without even fearing for his life. Right, at the end of the day, when you go into insurgency, I personally believe insurgency is very, very risky, because you don't even know the bullet will come from which side. At least in a war, you are facing each other. The bullet is coming from the other side. But in insurgency, you don't even know. You are bound to be hit from any angle of the 360 degree, right? So he used to be very, very fond of undertaking those missions when he was in the counter-insurgency operations and support. I think, which also I personally believe now when I look back, that Vikram dared to go for a second mission when 4875 came up, right? He would have actually thought that whatever experience he has in that short service of 15 months, I think he wanted to really go and prove it also his mettle in terms of leading an assault and giving it a complete success.
Do you ever wish that it was you instead of him?
I always, if you ask me, you give me a gun today, I would love to go into a border. Right? I'll be very honest. When this operation happened, I was actually thinking, whom could I approach that I can tell? I also need a gun. I need to be in the border with my Fauji bhais, even if I'm not donning a uniform. Because end of the day, my personal philosophy of life has been that end of the day, you're a soldier. It's only that I'm a soldier by heart. I'm not a soldier in the uniform. That's what I think of myself. But it is not necessary that I have to don a uniform to be that patriotic and be very passionate about our olive green men, our all forces, whether it's army, navy, or force, right? So I would have loved to be a part of the any ambush given a chance.
Would you still encourage children from your own family to become soldiers, despite having gone through whatever you went through, for, of course, a noble cause?
Of course, I do. I do take a lot of sessions in the colleges, in the management colleges, where I go and always talk about army as a life. I always talk, right? And I think I personally believe I would have inspired a lot of people, though Vikram is the right inspiration because I have been managing, as I mentioned that I work for ICICI Bank as a national business head. I manage the defense services vertical for the bank. And thanks to my institution that, while I couldn't join a uniform, but I'm serving the men in the other format. And I have met, I don't know how many officers in the uniform who've been telling me, Vishal, that we have joined forces just because of one man, which is your brother. And you take a lot of pride in that, right? And I also take a lot of pride when I go and I talk about his stories. I do tell people, I couldn't join in because I think it was not in my destiny. But I believe that, you end of the day, you're a soldier.
There's a lot of depiction about him. A movie has been made. Do you think any film or a commercial venture as such does justice to the valor or bravery of Captain Batra?
Yes, we were very happy with the way movie has come up. Reason is that we were the storytellers, and I think both Dharma Production, Shabir Boxwala did a fantastic job. Kudos to Siddharth for portraying his role so well. And we were initially worried. But in reality, the way the movie has come up, Vikram was a real life character like that. He was a very lovely, a very jovial. जिसको कहते हैं ना उसकी दो बड़ी principles है life में. एक वो कहता था कि I always wanted to live life king size. He always led that. Two, वो यारों का यार था वो बिल्कुल. He was a very jovial, a very helpful guy. So whenever I go and unit, and some of these fellow soldiers who were along with him when he was fighting the war, they always swear by Vikram's bravery. They said he was very, very daring. And the moment we used to get to know that our company commander or our platoon commander would be Captain Vikram, they used to say that he used to walk. So हमें मालूम था कि Vikram is always going to be in the front.
Right. Is that how the name Sher Shah? Is that how Sher Shah?
Yes.
Wonderful. This Pahalgam and the after Operation Sindoor, to be very specific, suddenly came to a halt because of ceasefire. But going by Captain Batra's line that ye dil mange more, many Indians wanted some kind of conclusive, end to this. What would he have said if he was here at this moment? What would he have said right now?
Very difficult for me to answer, but I would always believe that had it been Vikram was here, he would have been the rank of a brigadier because 42 of his classmates are brigadiers now, right? Cost 101, and I'm a part of the 101 group in a WhatsApp. I'm sure that he would have acted in the faith of the government with whatever strategic decision the senior command or the government would have taken. And I'm not being diplomatic. I'm very honest because I've been speaking to his fellow batchmates, and they're all in the thick of it, without naming anyone, right? Without naming where they posted. I've been speaking to them, and everybody's in the thick of the action. I'm sure Vikram would have been into the thick of the action.
Would he have given us yet more beautiful line like "Ye dil mange more"? Would he have given us a punchline this time as well?
I'm sure, the kind of the person he was. He used to be very fond of movies. I don't know in case he could have really come up with another slogan from any movie because "Ye dil mange more," of course, became a famous line. But I'm sure he would have definitely said something because I remember. Even during when he was fighting the Kargil War, in the exchange of fire, there were a lot of verbal spat also when the codes were intercepted by the enemy, and your telecommunication gets intercepted. So I'm sure there would have been a lot more rather than just one-liners, I personally believe.
Wonderful. Mr. Batra, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your time. We'll definitely look forward to catching up with you once again and even meet you in person. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for joining.
Thank you so much for having me here, and Jai Hind.